You may leave, Miss Voss. That was the first thing Isadora Vane said after the last guest disappeared into the rain. The villa had gone quiet in that particular way old houses manage. Not peaceful, but supervised, as if the walls were still cataloging everyone who'd passed through them. Behind her, the lake lay black under the storm. Rain ran down the glass walls of the salon, and near the piano, a half-empty champagne tower glittered uselessly under the chandelier, forgotten now that no one was left to drink from it. I was kneeling by my camera bag, sliding a lens back into its case, when I noticed her feet. Bare. That was the part that unsettled me. All evening, Isadora had been armored. Satin dress, diamonds, a red mouth sharp enough to sign a contract, a cold smile worn like inherited property. Now the shoes were gone, one earring missing, her hair loosened at her shoulder, and somehow she looked more dangerous undone than she had all night in full armor. "You may leave," she repeated. I zipped the bag slowly. That sounds very generous. It is. Then why does it sound like a test? She watched me in the reflection of the glass. For the first time all night, her mouth didn't curve into something cruel. It trembled, barely, almost nothing, almost. "Because," she said, so quietly the rain nearly swallowed it, "I want to know if you already understand that I don't want you to." I stopped moving. The villa held its breath with me. What happened after that belongs to the part of the night I can't fully tell here. The part after the door closed and the mask finally slipped. If you want those minutes, they're waiting for you in Dahlia's darkroom. But I should start earlier. Vittoria called me at 9:17 that morning, which was suspicious on its own. Vittoria never called before 10, unless the job was rich, dangerous, emotionally cursed, or all three. I picked up while standing in line for a croissant I could not afford. "Please tell me this isn't urgent." "It's urgent." "Then lie better." "Dahlia." There it was, my name and her voice polished into a warning. I stepped out of line with the tragic maturity of a woman abandoning breakfast for capitalism. "Who is she?" "Isadora Vane." I went still. Even I knew that name. Everyone did. Old money, new scandal, a lakeside villa that turned up in architecture magazines and divorce filings with equal regularity. Isadora was the last Vane daughter, 38, an art foundation, private galas, black cards, white roses. People called her impossible, spoiled, elegant, and cruel, usually all in the same sentence. Why does she need a photographer? A donor dinner tonight. So, event coverage. She needs someone who can survive her. That's not a brief. It's the honest version. I looked back through the bakery window at the croissant I'd already lost. I hate honest versions before coffee. Vittoria ignored that. She asked for someone discreet. I suggested you. You suggested me to a woman famous for humiliating her staff? She doesn't humiliate staff. Comforting. She humiliates everyone. I closed my eyes. Vittoria. She'll test you. I'm not furniture. Then don't let her use you as decoration. That was Vittoria's version of caring. Sharp, inconvenient, probably billable. She sent the address, a villa on the lake, dinner at 7, portraits before midnight. Then one last message. Don't let her make cruelty look glamorous. That, unfortunately, was exactly the sentence that made me say yes. By 6:30, the road to the villa had disappeared into rain. The lake stretched beside the car like black glass, broken only by the headlights and a low silver line of horizon. The driver didn't speak, and I appreciated him deeply for it. Vane Villa appeared behind iron gates and cypress trees, lit from within like a museum pretending to be a home. Huge windows, stone terraces, a long staircase slick with rain. Everything beautiful, everything built at a scale too large for one person. A butler opened the door before I could knock. Not a modern assistant, not security. An actual butler, because apparently some families still kept the 19th century on payroll. "Miss Voss," he said. "Miss Vane is in the West Salon." He took my coat. He did not take my camera bag. Smart man. The villa smelled of rain, old wood, white flowers, and money that had been money long enough to stop announcing itself. Low jazz drifted from the salon, glasses clinking, voices polished into dinner party shapes. I followed the sound into a room built to intimidate. Black marble fireplace, tall windows facing the lake, a grand piano, walls of paintings whose insurance probably had better health care than I did. And in the center of it stood Isadora Vane, deep red satin that made the room look slightly underdressed, dark hair swept over one shoulder, gray eyes, a diamond bracelet, a smile that made warmth look optional. She was talking to a senator, or a banker, or a man who'd been born agreeing with himself. Then she saw me, and though the conversation around her continued, her attention didn't. She looked me over once, hair, blazer, camera, boots, then said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Vittoria sent someone younger than I expected." A few guests smiled into their glasses, not because it was funny, because rich people mistake cruelty for entertainment when it arrives in the right accent. I smiled back. That happens when people expect the camera to be older than the photographer. Someone coughed. Isadora's eyes sharpened. She hadn't expected me to answer. "Your camera is old," she said. "Reliable. So is my staff. Then they're lucky you noticed." That landed. Not loudly, but her smile changed. A little less decorative, a little more interested. She stepped away from her guests, and the room made space for her without being asked. "Miss Voss." "Dahlia." No. There it was, the first slap, soft enough to leave no mark, sharp enough to sting. Dahlia is what people use when they intend to be friendly. I photograph better when people forget to perform manners. Then tonight will be difficult for you. Probably. Her eyes dropped to my camera. Try not to make the donors look bored. I make no promises. And try not to make me look sentimental. I find that vulgar. I glanced around the enormous room, the flowers, the piano, the lake, the guests pretending not to listen. That should be easy. I haven't seen any sentiment yet. The smile stopped. And that was the second I realized the evening might be worth missing breakfast for. The first hour was war fought in silk. Isadora moved through her own dinner like a queen bored of her throne, touching no food, sipping almost nothing, remembering every donor's name, every spouse's weakness, every old scandal politely buried under charitable giving. I photographed her from across the room, laughing without warmth, touching a woman's shoulder with perfect distance, accepting praise for a foundation she treated like a tax shelter with floral arrangements. Every photo was beautiful. Every photo lied. That was the problem. At one point, she summoned me with 2 fingers, not a wave, a summons. And I went because I'm professional, and because I wanted to see what she'd do when I refused to be impressed. She was standing beside a sculpture shaped like a woman without a face. Of course she was. "Miss Voss," she said, "perhaps try framing from a lower angle. It will help." Help what? Make them appear important. I thought donors already assumed that. The woman beside her laughed too quickly. Isadora didn't. "Are you always this disrespectful while working?" "Only when people micromanage from the wrong side of the lens." A silence opened. One man near the piano looked delighted. Another looked terrified. Isadora took one step closer. "Careful." The word was quiet, not kind, not loud, Worse, private. Why? I asked. Will you fire me? I could. Then do it before dessert. I get sentimental around chocolate. The laugh that time was real, small, startled, and it caught Isadora off guard. I saw something sharpen behind her eyes, not embarrassment, something closer to how much she hated being the room's entertainment, unless she was the one directing it. She turned to her guests and smiled. My photographer is charmingly undertrained. I lowered the camera. Whatever softness had been on my face went with it. No. The room stilled. Isadora looked back at me. Excuse me? You can insult the angle. You can insult the light. You can insult my camera if it makes you feel tall. But you don't get to humiliate me for sport and still expect honest photographs. Several people looked down at their drinks. The butler by the door became deeply interested in a silver tray. Isadora's expression froze. Perfect. Deadly. Do you speak to all your clients this way? No. Should I feel special? I wouldn't recommend it. She stepped closer. I pay people to know their place, Miss Voss. I looked at her, really looked. At the satin, the diamonds, the cold mouth, the hand gripping her glass a little too tightly. I don't photograph women who perform cruelty because they're afraid of silence. That sentence did something to her that no one else in the room would have caught. One blink, one breath, one crack. Then she lifted her chin. Everyone, please continue enjoying yourselves. The music resumed badly. Conversations restarted in fragments. Isadora leaned in, close enough that only I could hear. Library. 10 minutes. Then she walked away, and somehow, even though she'd given the order, it felt like the first time all night that she was the one following me. The library was warmer than the salon, less polished, more dangerous. Tall shelves climbed the walls, lamps glowed amber, and the rain tapped the windows in a softer rhythm here, as though even the storm had been asked to lower its voice. Isadora was already inside when I arrived. No guests, no staff, no music, standing near the fireplace with her arms crossed. You embarrassed me, she said. You were doing fine on your own. Her eyes narrowed. I should send you home. You should. But then every photo from tonight will show exactly what everyone already thinks you are. She looked amused despite herself. And what do they think I am? Rich? Accurate? Spoiled? Predictable? Cruel? Her face went still. And what do you think? I set my bag on the reading table. I think cruelty is sometimes just loneliness with better jewelry. For the first time, she didn't answer. I took out my camera. Sit. Her eyebrows lifted. Are you giving me orders now? Yes. Brave? No. Efficient. She stared at the leather chair by the fireplace as though it had insulted her bloodline, then, to my surprise, sat. Not naturally, not at first. She arranged herself like a portrait. One leg crossed, chin lifted, satin falling just so over her knees, diamonds catching the firelight. Beautiful. Unbearable. No, I said. Again with that word. It keeps being useful. You told me to sit. I told you to stop performing. I am not performing. Isadora. Her name changed the room. She looked at me sharply. You weren't invited to use that. No, I took the liberty. You're very good at that. I hear it's a rich person hobby. Almost a smile. Gone too quickly. I lifted the camera. Look at the fire. She turned. Click. Pretty. Empty. Again, I said, but let your face arrive before your reputation does. That's ridiculous. Probably. Do you always talk like this? Only when the subject keeps running away. I haven't moved. No, that's the trick. This time she laughed, not fully, not happily, but real enough for me to catch it. Click. The shutter caught her before she could put the laugh back where it belonged, and she knew it. Show me. I walked over, not too close. She reached for the camera. I didn't hand it over. Her eyes flicked to mine. Don't you trust me? Not with delete buttons. Something like respect crossed her face. I turned the screen toward her. Firelight, red satin, her head turned slightly. Her mouth caught open mid-laugh she hadn't meant to have. For once, she didn't look untouchable. She looked surprised by herself. I hate that, she said. No, you don't. I look foolish. You look alive. Same thing in certain rooms. Then we're in the wrong room. She looked at me for a long moment. Take another. This time, it didn't sound like an order. After the library, she stopped calling me Miss Voss. Not completely. Isadora wasn't the kind of woman who surrendered a weapon just because it had gone obvious. But every now and then, she forgot. Dahlia, she'd say, and catch herself a beat too late. And each time it felt like watching a locked door fail at being locked. We drifted through the villa together while the guests' voices grew fainter behind us. A different world. A corridor lined with portraits of dead Vanes, all of them looking like they'd personally invented disappointment. My family, she said. They look cheerful. They were rich. Cheer was outsourced. I almost smiled, she noticed. You enjoy judging us. I enjoy patterns. And what pattern do you see? Big house, small laughter. That silenced her. Not because it was clever, but because it was true. We stopped in a glass hallway over the lake. The rain softened to mist, the water dark and endless beyond the panes. Isadora stood at the window and, for once, didn't arrange herself. Her shoulders dropped, just slightly. Click. She turned. Did I give permission? No. Her eyes narrowed. I lowered the camera. I can delete it. You won't. No. Why? Because it's the first photo tonight where the house looks smaller than you. She looked back through the glass at the lake. This house is not small. I didn't say it was. The answer landed slowly. She crossed her arms, but it read less like anger now, and more like she was holding herself together. My father used to host dinners every weekend, she said, with no lead-in, no warning, just a door opening. Every room full. Musicians, politicians, actresses, men who laughed too loudly because they wanted him to like them. And did he? No. He liked being wanted. Her reflection looked back at us both from the glass. He died 6 years ago. My mother moved to Monaco 3 months later. My brother took the London house. My cousins call when they need art loans or endorsements. And the staff? I asked. Her mouth curved without humor. They're paid to be kind. That was the sentence. The real one, not the scandal, not the donors, not the cruelty. They're paid to be kind. I lifted the camera. She didn't stop me. Look at me. She did, not defiantly, not perfectly, just looked. Click. For 1 second, the woman in the frame wasn't Isadora Vane, heiress, donor, hostess, beautiful disaster in red satin. She was a person, standing inside an enormous house full of people who could leave the moment their shift ended. The shutter sounded too loud. Her eyes dropped. Delete that. No. Softer this time. Still no. She turned from the window. You're unbearable. I've been told. By women who wanted you to stay? Sometimes. Her gaze sharpened, the dangerous warmth again. Did you? Stay? Yes. I held her stare. Not when they only wanted an audience. Isadora looked away first. That was new. It felt like a victory, not over her, for her. Back in the salon, the dinner had begun to collapse in the way dinners do. People laughed louder. One donor had moved from wine to whiskey. A young art critic pretended to understand a painting near the piano. The senator's wife looked like she'd been trying to leave for 40 minutes, but had married into patience. Isadora became the hostess again instantly. Smile, comment, a touch on an elbow, a sharp little joke delivered with perfect timing. Everyone relaxed when she performed cruelty correctly. It was the most depressing thing I'd seen all night, and I photographed it anyway. Beside the senator, smiling without joy, listening to a donor praise her generosity while her eyes drifted to the windows, surrounded by people and entirely alone. Then a man in a navy suit said something about me. I only caught the end of it. Pretty girl with an old camera. The room smiled. Isadora did too, automatically. Then she looked at me and stopped. That was when I knew the story had changed. A few hours earlier, she'd have sharpened the joke and handed it back to the room with interest. Instead, she set down her glass. "Careful, Martin." Her voice was light, too light. He laughed. "I meant no offense." "No, that's what makes it worse." The room chilled. "I only meant..." "You meant she's decoration with equipment." He looked embarrassed now. Good. Isadora stepped closer to him, still smiling. "Miss Voss is the only person in this house tonight doing anything honest. I'd choose your next sentence with care." Nobody moved. The man mumbled an apology. I nodded once. Isadora didn't look at me. She couldn't. That was fine, because the defense had cost her something. Not socially, personally. The woman who used humiliation as furniture had just removed a piece from her own room. I photographed her anyway, not the apology, the aftermath. The small shake in her hand when she lifted her glass again. She heard the shudder. This time, she didn't ask me to delete it. By midnight, the guests began to leave, expensive coats appearing, goodbyes blooming, promises made to donate, visit, call, return. People always promise to return when they're already leaving. I watched Isadora receive each kiss on the cheek like a woman being thanked for letting herself be visited. The last donor left at 12:43. The doors closed. The staff began clearing glasses, and Isadora stood in the middle of the salon, alone inside a room still full of evidence that people had been there. I lowered my camera. For a moment, she looked very small. Then she felt me looking, and the mask came back. "You may leave, Miss Voss." There it was, the hook. The same sentence, but this time I heard the crack beneath it. I should have left. Professionally, that would have been the clean thing. Invoice in the morning, edited photos in 48 hours, a polite note to Vittoria pretending the evening had been ordinary. Instead, I zipped the camera bag slowly, too slowly. Isadora watched me from the window. The rain had started again, soft at first, then harder, turning the lake into a black surface of broken lines. "You may leave," she repeated. "That sounds very generous." "It is." "Then why does it sound like a test?" Her reflection studied me from the glass. For once, there was no audience left to reward the cruelty. No donor to impress. No staff close enough to pretend not to listen. Just us, the room, the storm, the house that was too big. "Because," she said, quieter now, "I want to know if you already understand that I don't want you to." I stood. The bag was heavy in my hand. "Isadora." She closed her eyes when I said her name. Only a second, but I saw it. "You're not paying me for this part," I said. Her eyes opened. The words landed exactly where I wanted them. Not as an insult, as a release. "What?" You said people don't stay in this house unless you pay them. Her jaw tightened. I didn't ask for pity. Good, I don't offer it. Then what are you offering? I set the bag down. 10 minutes. No camera? No camera. No invoice? No invoice. No clever analysis of my tragic rich girl loneliness? Probably not no clever analysis. I have limits. That got the smallest laugh out of her. It broke halfway through. She turned from the window. 10 minutes. Yes. And then? Then you can ask me to leave. She crossed to the fireplace but didn't take the grand chair this time. Instead, she sank onto the rug in front of it. Red satin, barefoot, diamonds still at her wrist. A woman worth millions sitting on the floor like a tired child who'd finally found an empty room. I sat beside her. Not too close. Close enough. For a while, neither of us spoke. The fire cracked softly. Rain tapped the glass. You were wrong earlier, she said. About which brilliant observation? I don't perform cruelty because I'm afraid of silence. She stared into the fire. I perform it because if people hate me, at least they're paying attention. That one hurt more than it should have. I turned my hands over in my lap. That's a very expensive way to ask not to be invisible. She laughed once, almost angrily. Don't make me sound poetic. Then stop saying devastating things in firelight. Her mouth curved, a real smile, exhausted, unpracticed, beautiful. I wanted to photograph it. I didn't. She noticed. Why didn't you? Because I said no camera. You actually meant that? Unfortunately, I have moments of integrity. They pass. Her smile stayed. That was dangerous. Not because it was seductive, but because it looked relieved. The 10 minutes became 20, then 30. Neither of us mentioned it. Isadora talked in pieces. Not a confession, she wasn't that generous with herself. More like she set small objects between us and waited to see if I'd break them. Her father never said he was proud of her unless someone important could hear it. Her mother loved rooms more than people. Her brother called the villa a mausoleum and only visited when there was a photographer from a society magazine involved. Her last serious relationship had ended, in her words, because she wanted a woman, not a weather system. I tried not to laugh, and failed. Isadora looked offended for half a second, then laughed too. And that was the moment the villa changed. Not physically, the chandeliers still glittered, the lake still pressed black against the glass, but the salon felt less like a stage and more like a room. You're very easy to dislike, she said. Thank you. That was not praise. I photograph compliments in difficult lighting. She shook her head. I understand why Vittoria likes you. Vittoria doesn't like anyone. She likes competence. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said about me. Isadora looked at me then, really looked, without the room, without the guests, without the habit of striking first. You didn't leave when I gave you permission. No. Why? I wanted to say something safe. Because the storm was bad. Because Vittoria would kill me if I left without checking the final shots. Because my bag was heavy. Instead, I told her the truth. Because you sounded like you were asking the wrong question. Her eyes held mine. What was the right one? Will you stay? The fire snapped. Isadora looked away. There are beautiful women who know exactly what their beauty does. She was one of them. But this was different. This wasn't power. This was fear. I don't ask that, she said. I know. People leave anyway. Yes. And if I ask, then at least they know they're leaving a person, not a performance. Her breath changed. Her hand moved on the rug. Not toward me, not exactly, but closer. I looked at it. She noticed, of course. Careful, Dahlia. No threat in it this time, only trembling. I usually am, I said. That's still a lie. Yes. Her fingers brushed mine, barely, the smallest contact, the kind that would mean nothing in a crowded room. Here, it meant the whole house had gone silent to listen. Neither of us moved. Then she turned her hand over. An invitation, not a command. I slid my fingers into hers, and her eyes closed. It wasn't dramatic, no gasp, no sudden music, just a woman who'd spent years being touched by expectation, suddenly unsure what to do with a hand that wanted nothing. See? I said softly. What? Free of charge. She laughed, and then she cried. Not loudly, not beautifully, just one tear she looked furious about. I didn't wipe it away. I only held her hand, because sometimes intimacy isn't the kiss. Sometimes it's letting a proud woman keep her last shred of dignity while the first wall comes down. When Isadora finally looked at me again, the tear was still there. She hated that, I could tell. She lifted her free hand to erase it, but I caught her wrist gently. Wait. Why? Because you're about to make yourself presentable for no one. The words stopped her. Her wrist was slim under my fingers, warm, more fragile than she'd ever let anyone see. I don't know how to sit in a room unprepared, she said. Then don't perform prepared. That makes no sense. Most good photographs don't, until after. She stared at me, then lowered her hand. The tears stayed, catching the firelight like glass. That was when I broke my promise. Not fully, not carelessly. I released her wrist and reached for the camera beside my bag, lifting it halfway. May I? The question changed everything. No theft, no ambush, no rich woman being captured by someone hiding behind the word artistry. Just a question. Isadora looked terrified of yes. Then she said it anyway. Yes. I photographed her sitting on the rug in front of the fire. Satin pooled around her, diamonds at her wrist, bare feet tucked under her, one tear on her face and no cruelty left to hide behind. She didn't flinch. Her mouth trembled. Her eyes found mine. That was the one. I lowered the camera. She looked exhausted and somehow lighter. Show me, she whispered. I moved closer. This time, close wasn't a dare. It was a place we'd both chosen. I turned the screen toward her. She leaned in, our shoulders touching. In the image, Isadora didn't look spoiled. She didn't look cruel. She didn't even look sad exactly. She looked like a woman discovering the terrifying possibility that being seen might not always lead to punishment. She stared at the photo for so long, I thought she might ask me to delete it. Instead, she said, I look poor. What? Emotionally. The sentence surprised a laugh out of me, and then it surprised one out of her, too. Quiet, broken, absurd. The kind of laugh that comes after crying because the body needs somewhere else to put the truth. Click, she turned. You took that. Yes. Without asking. You laughed without warning. She should have punished me for it. She didn't. Instead, she looked at the new photo, then back at me. Keep that one. For you? Her eyes moved over my face. No. That single word pulled the air out of the room. For me? I asked. She looked almost embarrassed by her own courage. Yes. The fire shifted. My camera felt suddenly too heavy. Isadora, don't say my name like it's dangerous. It is. Good. She moved closer, not much, enough. Her gaze dropped to my mouth. There are moments when the question is already in the room before anyone speaks. Still, I asked because it mattered. May I kiss you? Isadora closed her eyes, not like a queen, not like a woman being adored, like someone finally setting down a glass she'd been holding for far too long. Yes, she said. So I kissed her. The kiss was softer than I expected. That was the first surprise. I'd imagined Isadora would kiss the way she spoke, sharp, expensive, designed to leave a mark. Instead, her mouth met mine carefully, almost uncertainly, as if she'd ordered half the world around for years and still didn't know how to ask for gentleness without it sounding like weakness. I let her decide the pressure, the pace, the distance, slowly at first, then less slowly. Her hand rose to my shoulder, not grabbing, not commanding, just resting there, as if she needed proof I was real. The fire cracked beside us. The villa remained enormous around us, but the space between us had become small enough to survive. When she pulled back, she didn't rebuild the mask right away. That was braver than the kiss had been. I was terrible to you, she said. Yes. She blinked. You're supposed to soften that. I am? People usually do. I thought we'd established your people are overpaid. The laugh escaped before she could stop it. This time, I didn't photograph it. I watched instead, and that felt more intimate. Isadora looked down at our hands, still tangled on the rug. I don't know what happens after this. Neither do I. I dislike uncertainty. I noticed. I'll probably become unbearable tomorrow. Probably. And you'll probably regret staying. Maybe. Her eyes lifted. But not tonight, I said. The words settled between us. Her face changed, not into happiness, something quieter, something that looked almost like rest. Stay tonight, she said. Not an order, not a game, not the sharp command of a woman used to rooms rearranging themselves around her. A request. Not as the photographer. I squeezed her hand. Then stop paying me. Her lips parted, and for once, Isadora Vane had no elegant answer ready. Good. I kissed her again, gently this time because the second kiss didn't have to prove anything. Later, I did leave, not because I wanted to, because some stories are better for being allowed to breathe before the next page. Isadora walked me to the door herself. The staff had vanished somewhere discreet, the villa dim now, the chandeliers lowered, the lake silvering under the thinning rain. At the entrance hall, she put the mask back on, mostly. Satin, bare feet, diamonds, chin lifted. But there was a softness around her mouth that hadn't been there when I arrived. I picked up my coat. She watched. Your invoice, she said. What about it? It will be wrong. I haven't sent it yet. It will still be wrong. That's impressive confidence. Her eyes held mine. You didn't charge for the first honest thing that's happened in this house in years. The sentence hit harder than I expected. Almost, I looked away. I don't charge for that. No? No. What do you charge for? I opened the door. Rain-cooled air came into the hall. Portraits, editing, travel, emotional damage occasionally. Her mouth curved. Then I owe you a fortune. Send wine. I don't apologize with wine. That explains a lot. There it was, the smile. Small, real, mine for 1 second. The next morning, I woke to a message from an unknown number. Of course, it wasn't unknown. Not really. Your invoice is wrong. Then, you forgot to charge me for staying. Then, come back and correct it. I stared at the screen, then laughed into my coffee. Vittoria called 5 minutes later. How was the job? I looked at the message again. Outside my window, the city was bright after rain. Complicated, I said. Vittoria paused. Good complicated or Dahlia complicated? I smiled. Both. Because somewhere beside a dark lake, inside a villa too large for one lonely woman, Isadora Vane had learned that not everyone who stays has been paid to do it. And I'd learned something too. Sometimes the woman who mocks your camera isn't afraid of being photographed. She's afraid the photograph might finally prove she was waiting for someone to see her. And worse, that someone might decide to stay.